However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls, to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. Tonight, joining me is Debbie Jordan-Kauble, Terry Lovelace, and Lisa O'Hara, all ET contact and experiencers for this roundtable tonight. Thank you all for joining us. As the night goes on, please join us in the YouTube chat. We'll try to get your questions on air. And of course, in the last 30 minutes, we'll open the Paranormal Radio app lines. And that number is 1-855-472-5483 or 85-KGRA live. And of course, friendly reminder to all of you out there who know I am a fan of UFO Monument Park. If you come on up here to the Northeast, please check out UFO Monument Park. And it's just a beautiful point of destination for anyone who's an enthusiast of those really significant events that have occurred in the history of ufology. Being in touch with Tom Reed, he sent me some photos. So he's putting these out there for y'all to check out. If you want to go and get some UFO Park merchandise, go to ufopark.org. And if you are a city person like me and you can't do outdoor frisbee as much as you want, they've got some UFO Park indoor frisbees as well. And there's this really cool, beautiful green water bottle. I like this. I'm going to get this soon. All right. So in just a minute, we're going to have our experiencer round table. I think this will be really interesting because rather than the usual interviewing of a guest and exploring their book, which is fascinating and I love it, I thought it would be really interesting to hear the cross conversation and their shared experiences. And if you are an experiencer yourself, please feel free to join the chat room on YouTube. And again, you can call in the last 30 minutes and share your story with all of us. And, I just kind of feel like whenever you call in, it's like plugging into this global community that we have. And I just absolutely love it. And with that said, there's a lot of really exciting news coming up with KGRA. There's a couple of new shows coming that I can't mention yet, but I will hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And the infrastructure, the setup of KGRA is continuing to improve and evolve. And so soon enough, we'll have some updates as far as new content and new ways to access content. So keep checking in on these shows or on the kgradb.com website for all of those updates. And once again, the Paranormal Radio app line in the last 30 minutes to call in is 85-KGRA live or 855-472-5483. All right, so joining me tonight is Lisa O'Hara, author of Abducted and Furious, Terry Lovelace, author of Incident at Devil's Den, and Debbie Jordan-Kauble, author of Extraordinary Contact, Life Beyond Intruders. Welcome, everybody, to Paranormal Now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming back on again and together. So I think this is a subject matter that fascinates a lot of people. And in my experience, there are those who are fascinated with the wide world of ufology, and then those who are ultra focused on the experiencer story. And I wanted to ask each of you, why do you think that is? So we'll start with Lisa. What do you think?
About the experiencer versus the contactee versus the abductee?
Why are people so interested in the experiencer experience, sometimes more intensely than just the general ufological study?
I believe it's because we, as a group, we've been seeing these UFOs for so long and the government keeps denying it. And to talk to an actual person who's experienced some things that the government is hiding from us, I think everyone wants to know. They have a need to know. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Debbie, what do you think?
Well, people have been seeing them since man could record history, and they don't know what they are. And I think that attracts them. People are curious and they want to know what's going on. And then I think there's a group of people that maybe have had experiences themselves that have never spoken about it, not even publicly, but I mean, not even with family or friends. And they find themselves drawn to other people that they think they may have had an experience with the same thing. So there's that.
Terry, what about yourself?
I kind of agree with both you guys. I think that there's a large group of people out there that have had experiences that, like Deb said, they maybe have not shared with anyone else for fear of being judged or fear of being, looked at as off a little bit or something. I put an email address in the back of my first book, Incident at Devil's Den, and said, look, if you've had an experience and you'd like to tell me about it, I'd love to hear about it. I had 1,400 people respond to me, and I had an awful lot of people write to me and say, I've never told this to anyone. But they shared it with me. I felt very privileged to have heard those stories. I bet, Deb, you and Lisa have had emails like that too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever read an email and thought that you should respond? And then what do you do? Like, how do you respond emotionally to something like that? Because I imagine that's kind of a slippery slope. On the one hand, it would be great to hear from you, right? If one is an experiencer, and it helps with validation. But on the other hand, being that it is kind of a traumatic experience, is that a risky thing to do? Do you give people advice? Like, how do you manage that? Let's go with Debbie.
I've gotten a lot of not just emails, but letters, because back before the internet, I've gotten a lot of letters, and I've responded to some, and I feel like I try to be very careful about what I say. I want to support them. I tell them, I'm like Terry, feel privileged that they chose to share with me whatever it is they're going through. And there's times when I've heard things that, I don't really have, and I'll tell them I don't have answers. I'm still looking for answers for myself. Yeah. But I just want you to know that, I appreciate that you reached out to me, that I want you to know you're not alone. And if you want to continue, if you need someone to listen, I'm here. I may not have any answers for you, but I'm here, and basically I just try to be supportive in any way I can. I feel like I was more fortunate than a lot of people in my position because I had the support of my family, my friends, my neighbors, my coworkers, my employer, you know what I mean? And most people don't have that. And so I really wanted to pay that forward and be there for other people like me, and be an example in a way and say, look, I got through this and so will you. I know it's hard and I've been there, but so I do respond, but I try to be very careful about what I say. And, I don't want to make any more damage than's already been done.
Sure. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah. I answer every one of those emails, every single one. As a matter of fact, I think, Lisa, isn't that how we got connected? Was it by email or was it at a conference?
It was email and then a conference.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I answer every single one. And I've only had, in 3 years, I think I've had one or two bad experiences, but that's really outweighed by the good experiences that I've had. I've had people that are not even UFO enthusiasts. I've had people that are NDE experiencers who wrote to me. I had several wrote to me talking about the similarities between my experience and what they went through. So, and I never really gave that much thought until they pointed them out to me, but there are a lot of commonalities.
Parallels.
There is.
Yeah.
Lisa, how do you deal with that?
Well, I'm sort of new at it, so I actually asked Terry for advice recently because I didn't really know how to handle it, and I felt like it was kind of a fine line. I want to help them, or I want to give them what they want, but on the other hand, it's like a really scary experience for me to write back to them. And so I'm trying to straddle the line between being helpful and open, but not, I don't know. Sometimes you get the feeling that they want more than you can give. Yeah. And so it's been difficult for me, actually, but I'm with experience, hopefully I'll get better at it. But I'm, like I said, new to it, and so I'm blindly going through it and going through to get where I need to go and to gain experience.
Yeah. Hey, Debbie, let's talk about your book that's coming up soon. I think you said a week or so it's coming out.
Should be available in the next week or so. Yeah.
It's called Extraordinary Contact: Life Beyond Intruders. So some people might not know the Intruders book or movie series, television series, right? It was limited series.
Yes, it was a CBS miniseries.
Yeah. So
Well,
do you want to quickly?
adaptation.
Yeah. Do you want to quickly share with everyone, essentially your story, I guess?
I am the central figure in Bud Hopkins' book, Intruders. I'm the Kathy Davis from that book, that what he wrote about. And I'm a lifelong experiencer who has gone from fear and terror and physical contact all the way to where I have come to now, which is a much better place in myself. And my contact changed, less physical and more, I don't know how to put it, more of a mental or psychic or some way like that. And I've had all kinds of experience in my life, not just the UFO stuff that happened to me and my family, but we lived with what people would call paranormal activity most of my life. I assumed everyone did when I was little. And then I was an investigator for MoveOn for about 10 years because my way of dealing with something that scared me was to learn as much about it as I could. So I kind of dove into that. And I was also like my biggest skeptic. I tried to every way I knew how to explain my own strange experiences. Most weird stuff, a lot of weird things that happened to me and members of my family, I could actually find the prosaic explanation for, but some things I could not. And so I also got involved in paranormal research in the early 2000s. And I kind of feel like that somehow and I can only speak for my own particular case, my own situation.
Sure.
I feel that there's some connection somehow. And that's why I kind of started going toward paranormal investigation and including it in my UFO stuff investigations. So, but yeah, that's me. I've had a lifetime of weird stuff happen to me, and I've managed somehow to figure out how to live through it and with it for the last 62 years. So
isn't that the way it seems to be, right? Like it's like some paranormal experience kind of just like unlocks.
It's like a switch
continuum of right.
One time I thought about it and I thought it's like the earlier contact that I had that was more traumatic and more physical with the physical damage and the mark in the yard and all of that. I feel like it did something to me, like I grew an extra, circuit connection somewhere else. Sure. It was like it flipped a switch on that opened up me to this other world, to these other things that started coming in and started happening. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's just, like I said, I can only speak for myself. So,
yeah. So Lisa, tell us a little bit about your story.
My story is similar to Debbie's, where I had a lot of unusual experiences that I couldn't like put a label on. I couldn't name them. They were just strange. And of course I couldn't talk to anyone about it because it wasn't similar enough to anything else. You couldn't say, oh, I'm psychic or I'm, whatever. You could just say this really, really strange thing happened to me and I don't know how to explain it. And so that happened my whole life. And so I then finally, something awakened me to the fact that I was an alien abductee. And then I am like Debbie also, where I want to understand everything. And I dove right in, to try to find a solution for it. And it was very scary and terrifying. And I also, searched and searched and searched for a solution to this problem. I mean, I left no stone unturned to discover solutions for my situation. But yeah, I went through the terror, I went through the fear, and also went through some anger. And now I'm just, I'm a lot calmer. And, but one of the unusual things that I didn't realize was happening was I worked at a company that was for SRI, had ties to SRI, and I actually changed my bio to reflect that. I think that's strange. I don't know if it's a coincidence. The people there were pretty strange, and they were also, I've had a couple of instances where they'll be on my personal Facebook page and they're trying to use disinformation tactics. And I know that sounds paranoid, but it's just strange, that's the kind of strange things that happen to me. So
when you're searching, what are you searching at? Like, what are you looking at? Where is your investigation for answers focused?
My focus is to remove the situation from my life, because I did not give permission for any of these abduction scenarios, and from my perspective, I really want them to just go away. And so I kept searching and searching for things that other people had done, searching for a solution to remove everything from my life. I mean, I appreciate any psychic things that happen, but I don't appreciate their methods, and I don't appreciate their tactics, and that kind of thing.
And what about you, Terry?
Can either of you guys, does this resonate? Turning off the TV. The TV pops on in the living room at 3 a.m. and I got to get up and go. Whichever one of us is more awake, either my wife or I, would get up and go into the living room and pick up the remote, turn it off, and we always say out loud, "Knock it off." I don't know if it does any good.
Yeah.
But that happens a couple times a year. And it's just some weird, freaky paranormal stuff does happen.
Yeah.
Things move and
it's definitely some connection, but I don't know what it is yet. I'm still searching.
Well,
do you say that out loud though, Terry? Like, knock it off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'll say, all right, guys, knock it off.
Yeah.
So do you think they're listening?
Always.
Yes. They're always listening.
Yeah. Terry, what are you seeking?
What am I seeking? I think I found it. What I was seeking in 2012, when I never had any intention of writing a book or of talking publicly about this. And in 2012, I had X-ray of my leg, and that's when they found these strange things in my leg. They're at terrylovelace.com if anybody wants to look at them. The X-rays are there. And seeing that on X-ray film just reinforced the fact that these things had put their hand on me in my abduction in 1977. Like Deb, I'd had, and probably Lisa, I think too, I've had experiences in my early childhood, and then a long hiatus with nothing happening. And then, I'm 22 years old in 1977, and I have this major event. So these X-rays brought this all to the forefront and brought back nightmares and PTSD symptoms. And I thought, I'm going to confront this topic, and I'm going to write about it and speak about it. And it's been very therapeutic for me. It's been very good. And, I lost a lot of friends in the legal community where I used to be, my peers. I could care less. I found that, there are more good people in this UFO community and culture than I could ever believe. And I've made some wonderful friends. And I found it. I'm very happy.
That's a great point. The community, I think the community by and large is a great community. Do you find ever you're among others who you think are charlatans or faking it? And if so, how does one manage that? And how much damage can that do to those who've had authentic experiences?
I can tell. Of course, I can't mention anybody's name.
Of course. Yep.
But at a conference, I ran into someone who was telling me about being examined by a collection of medical doctors at a certain university. Mm-hmm. And I won't say where. But I said, yeah, I like that area. I'm very familiar with it. And actually, I was familiar with it. I didn't go to school there, but I was familiar with the territory. And I asked him, I said, do they still sell Imo's Pizza there? Now, Imo's Pizza is a place that I knew as a kid back in St. Louis, and not associated with this location in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And this guy says, yeah, boy, great pizza. Love it.
The litmus test.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. So that's disappointing, but you know, I think it just goes with the territory. I think we build our credibility, and
I get a sense. I don't know if it's because of the things I've been through, but I can feel. You know what I mean, Terry? I can feel when somebody has a genuine experience. There's something in me that I can't even, it's almost on a subconscious level that connects with something in them. And I just know. I mean, all these years that I've been out and about around these conferences with Bud, when I would go with him, and then when a few times I've gone on my own, it's never failed me. And I've encountered people, like you said, that were, for whatever motives they had, probably weren't exactly forthright in what they were telling everybody else. And I felt it right away. But I'm not a confrontational person like that. And so my way of dealing with them was just to kind of distance myself from them. And that's kind of what I did, right or wrong. That's the only way I knew how to deal with it. But I'd be thinking to myself, I don't know why. I just, do you guys feel like that? You just know when you're with someone, you can feel something about their soul that you just connect with. You just know.
I have had that in the past, but of course I published right when COVID hit, so
yeah.
I haven't had a lot of experience with the public yet with my book, but yeah, I know what you're saying. I actually feel something too.
Well, I mean, I'm not an experiencer, but I think we all have that sort of intuition based on our own experiences, right? So
I found that the more you trust in that, the better it gets.
Oh yeah, I trust my gut. I felt that when I met you, Deb, at UFO Congress. I think we all went
in Arizona.
In Arizona, Arizona, yeah. We went out to we went to a restaurant with Yvonne and Jim Lowe and a bunch of people we like, and
that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Do you think that intuition is enhanced when you're in a place like Sedona, or in areas where there's this sort of extra vortex or energy that kind of lifts people spiritual energies, or does it matter wherever you are?
It doesn't really matter to me, but
I was in Sedona for a conference in February or March rather, and it's a cool place. It's a nice place, but I don't think it enhanced any of my gifts, if you want to call them
that.
Yeah, I agree with them. I think it's just inside of you as opposed to outside of you.
Right.
So is it the same feeling then? Like when you meet someone and you just get this off feeling and I maybe shouldn't be with this person. I think I'm going to walk away. Is it like that?
That's what I do. It might be rude. I'll be like, I really need to use the restroom, so if you'll excuse me, it was nice talking to you, and I'll see you around this weekend. That's pretty much what I do. If I say that to you, I'm probably trying to get away from you, and that's so bad.
Yeah, but the experience of life, my wife and I talk about it all the time. It's like learning to kind of put boundaries up, and also, to just let things go, let people go, that work against you or are just toxic in some way, and just let that go.
There's a little piece of me inside that says I'm the last person on the earth that ought to be judging anybody, because there's so much that I've talked about and written about that if I hadn't experienced it, and not just me too, not with me, but with my other people around that witnessed it, I'd be like, yeah, right, whatever.
Well, I mean, isn't it fair to say we all have baggage? Right.
And I got a 3-piece luggage.
All right. So, you know what? When we come back from the other side of this break, we'll ask them all about their baggage.
Oh, Lord.
No, when we come back, I do have some images from Lisa O'Hara that she sent me to show a little bit more about her experience. And, I think that it does help when we can show the public actual effects of an experience. I think it does make it a little bit more real. So we'll show those pictures with Lisa on the other side. And as always, tune in every Sunday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on kgradb.com, or you can watch all of these shows live on the YouTube channel. That's KGRA. All right, this is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. I will see you on the flip side. Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith. Thank you all for joining us tonight on KGRA Radio, live Sundays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, there are so many other great shows on this fantastic station. I hope that you will all join us to check out the many new shows and the weekly regulars, such as Universal Secrets with Kevin and Tiffany. Those are my buds over there on Tuesday night in my old slot. And of course, the Tracy Austin Show, Meanwhile Here on Earth with Peter Robbins, Night Vision with Renee Barnett, and so many other great shows. So, all right. So everybody has to admit one terrible fact about themselves before we can continue.
I'm ready.
All right. So I'll go. I dealt with depression. I've dealt with serious anxiety, and it took me years of work to get to where I am now. Now I don't, but I didn't have the experience. I don't have the experience that you have with a traumatic experience like that. Did you guys deal with depression and the likes?
Yeah, absolutely. Dealt with depression, and immediately after the 1977 event. About 60 days later, it really kind of, I've had trouble sleep. I've had trouble sleeping ever since. I still sleep with the light on. I can't cut across, I won't cut across an open field. I'll walk a mile and a half around, to get to the other side, but I'm not cutting across. I feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand that. And not being able to talk with someone, that feeling that I really couldn't share this with anyone for so long, for fear of losing my job, was no help. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I know Terry, you've been on the show before, and we talked about that experience. And we know that your friend had an extraordinarily challenging post-traumatic experience from the abduction. Can you share a little bit about the actual experience with those who may not be familiar?
Sure. My friend Toby. Before the experience, we worked together for 3 years, so I knew this man. Our wives were friends. I was 27, he was 23. We both lived on base, on the air base in base housing, and we even on days off, we'd spend time together, play cards, barbecue, do something. He was just a good friend, and I never saw the man drunk, and I never knew him to be a drinker. And after this event, he became a drinker. And his wife, we saw his wife some years later, and she said, yeah, it started with, he never went to bars, never, drank during the day. But as the sun started to set, he got antsy and nervous, and he was afraid of the night. And he would down a shot of vodka, and then it was 2 shots of vodka. And we all know that that's a slippery slope. And yeah. So that's sad.
So Lisa, what about yourself? Have you had any significant, you know, issues to overcome because of this, or just separately?
Well, because of my book and some of the tools in there, I was able to overcome claustrophobia, which, suddenly happened to me when I was 40, and I'm older now. And so I was able to, get rid of all of that, and also any other, anxiety, which I didn't realize was actually associated with procrastination. Procrastination is actually anxiety for me. And so I was able to remove myself from that. But some of the other things are harder because they require other people. They require a community, like isolation and abandonment and aloneness. And, and there is quite a bit of depression that goes along with that and you have to work hard to raise your vibration, so to speak, because that can be all encompassing. So that's been very, very difficult. And so it was a great thing that I happened to be at a MUFON experiencer meeting and heard about Terry's book because, I knew probably he was one of my people. And I needed to find my people because the other people aren't very nice about your experiences. They want you to feel alone even more. So.
Oh, what do you mean other people? Just like regular day folk?
Yeah. Anyone who hears about it, you can sort of watch them kind of not roll their eyes, but slowly move away from you. And then, your circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Your life becomes much smaller. So that's really tough.
So Lisa, your book is called Abducted and Furious.
Yes.
And we've talked about that. So I know that in particular, Terry and Lisa, you guys came away from your experiences embittered, right, with what had happened. But that's kind of changed a little bit. Debbie, I don't recall. How did you feel as you were learning? Did you have that sort of resentment and anger right off the bat, or was it a while to process?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is an entire lifetime, so I've had a long time to process this and change. But when I was young, in my teens and 20, I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder and anxiety-driven depression. It spells that came and went. And after the June 30, 83 incident, I'll tell anybody that wants to know, I feel like at that point I had a nervous breakdown, literally. And had it not been that I was living with my parents, who kind of took over for me with my kids and everything for months, I don't know what it would have happened. I'm so grateful for that. Yeah. And, I kept journals, which ended up being what my books were, and meeting Bud connecting me with people like me. And he had a buddy system. When he would, when I first hooked up with him, he hooked me up with a buddy that I could call anytime, day or night. And because she'd been in longer than me and had dealt with it longer than I had, because I was like 23 when I think I met Bud. But, regular life threw me a couple of pretty funky curveballs on the top of all of this, with my husband committing suicide in front of me in our backyard, and then a tornado dropping a house on me back in 2013, which I had to be dug out from under. So I was already a hot mess from my childhood and all this weird stuff, and then had all that stuff on top of me. Yeah. Thank God I found a therapist who specializes in anxiety, and she is a certified EMDR therapist. And so I've been having, and the best part about it is I thought, you know what, I got to tell somebody this other weird stuff, because I can't live like this, So I told her about the UFO stuff and what happened in 83 and everything. She was like totally okay with it all, open to it and everything. And so we've been doing EMDR therapy, not just for the prosaic traumatic experiences, but for my other, like the June 30, 83 experience was extremely traumatic and painful. And like Lisa, there were periods of time in my life when I wanted this stuff to just go away and leave me alone. Just stop. I can't do this anymore. I've got kids to raise. You're driving me crazy. I can't do this. Leave me alone. Yeah. And, periods of time would go along when nothing weird would happen. When I throw a fit like that and say, stop, leave me alone, it would like quiet down. And also in the traumatic times of my life, like when KO died and the tornado, things would slow down. It's like they'd be like, oh, let's give her a little space. In my head, I'm thinking that, I don't know. But anyway, it always eventually found me and would drop kick me right back into it again. And I just came to realize that, this is a part of who I am. This is why I am the person I am. So I'm going to embrace it. Yeah. And I'm going to try and use it to grow me, So that's where I'm at with it now. But absolutely, I've been everywhere on the board with it for the last 50 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, Terry and Debbie, you've been, open about this and talking about this for years. Where Lisa, it's a bit of a new experience to be out, as it were. So,
it's scary. It's a scary place when you're new. I know that.
Right. Because I was going to say that you two have had a chance to kind of, work out in not just the public, but in the community. Lisa, where are you in that stage? Like how far along do you feel you can relate to what Debbie has kind of explained?
I feel like I am working my way toward it, but like she said, I mean, I actually have that same exact experience where in my 30s, I had gotten a divorce. I said, this has to stop. I can't deal with this anymore. Mm-hmm. I cannot deal with one extra thing. And it stopped. But recently, I tried that same tactic. It's still going on. And it feels like it's sort of like a game, like as if a game is being played. And I'm like a pawn piece. And I'm being pushed around this large board. Mm-hmm. And then once I figure out what the game is, I say I quit this game, and then it stops. And then it starts up again. So I'm really frustrated by that experience. I don't understand why. And
yeah. When you say game, is it the same game every time? What does that mean?
For me, it's, initially I heard this in my sleep and I didn't know if it was, what it was. Was it a sales pitch, or was it a actual something from my subconscious? Was it, I didn't know, but I heard, you're a leader and we're training you to be a leader. So okay. So I would go through these scenarios and the game would end when I saved the world, for instance. Wow. And then another different kind of game where the game end was the same would start up, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Actually, last night, they were blocking my subconscious, and I said, I'm giving it up. I'm not fighting you for my subconscious anymore, and it stopped. But I got high-pitched tones in my ears. So these are weird things that don't even. I have no idea what these are. If these are people, if they're ETs. I don't know, but I am sick of these games and I want it to stop, and it just keeps on and on. So if I finally figured out that every game that started up was about me saving the world. So I just said, I'm stopping. I'm not playing these games anymore. Mm-hmm. Then this whole subconscious thing, all it is about fighting against them. Once you say I quit the game, it stops. So I don't know what this is about, and I don't care, but I do want it to stop, and that's my goal.
So are you still furious?
Yes and no. So something happened, and I think I realized that my anger was actually driving them. So I sought to, tone it down, turn it down. Now, I don't know if some other ETs came along and actually turned it off for me, which is good. Yeah. And that was very, very helpful. So my anger is no longer driving me, but I do want everything to stop.
Yeah. If the anger is driving them, if we go with that theory, is it because like someone who's trying to just get someone to calm down, right? And so they just keep trying and trying and trying to get you to calm down, and it's not working? Or is it more along the lines of feeding off of the anger or something like that?
It's definitely feeding off. And so if they can get me angry, then they can get their dark energy. That's how it seems.
So there's a metaphysical aspect to
It
this,
seems like it. Yeah.
which is kind of what Debbie was saying too, right? Like you have these more psychic and mental experiences.
Yes.
Okay. So does it all, for all of you, did it all start as a physical, or did you have like a preemptive psychic experience first?
You know, I had experiences from childhood. Deb was explaining her up in Michigan, some experiences she had in her childhood.
Yeah, I was like 6 or 7.
You know,
And I had an out of body experience that I called the dream, when I was like in kindergarten. So there's been some stuff.
and I was blown away because we had a lot of, I didn't discuss it. It wasn't the place, but I had a lot of similar, a lot of parallel kind of events.
Yeah.
So,
are those events connected, do you think,
Yeah.
leading up to the actual physical abduction?
well, yeah, I mean, 1987, I had 2 hours of missing time. April 16th of 2019, I had a significant event in my life. I don't have time to go into here, but yeah, it's been a lifelong adventure. When I think that they're done with me, I got to just wait a couple months and something will happen. I'll say this: the increased intuition has been very helpful at times, and I'm actually grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? It's like there's a positive that came out of this. So, when does the positive outweigh the negative? Or can't it? Is the negative... Go ahead, Terry.
I'm there. I think the positive is outweighed. I wouldn't trade my experiences now for anything.
I'm there too. I'm like Terry. I wouldn't change anything now. In the moment, I was furious and I'm like, stop and leave me alone. I was terrified and everything. But now, looking back on it now, I realize that those are the things that helped to shape my life and me. And I'm in a good place now. And like when I met Bud Hopkins, had I not met him, there is nothing about my life now that would even remotely resemble it. And I would not have met him had it not been for that June 30, 1983 experience. So it really, it's responsible for my entire life right now, which I'm happy with, and myself and the growth that I've done within me. So it was ugly, but I guess nothing good comes easy. I don't know.
You bring up Bud, right? And Bud, John Mack, but Bud in particular got a lot of attention, and it got news coverage, like actual, news coverage. And it's funny because in recent years, since the 2017 New York Times episode, there's been this more mainstream acceptance of covering ufology, right? And everyone's like, finally, they're covering ufology so seriously. But there was a period in the late 80s into like the early to mid 90s where even abduction experiences were taken at least somewhat seriously by certain news programs. And some of those old interviews, they're missing the snicker factor. They developed it, but they didn't necessarily have it all the time. Which
Early on in the very beginning, Bud took me to be on Oprah Winfrey's AM Chicago. This was before she was even, nationwide. This is when she just had a little local TV show. And we went on there, and this was like super early on. I was terrified and mortified, but I went with Bud because I felt obligated to. I mean, he was giving him his whole self to me and my family to help us. And Oprah Winfrey was so kind, and she made me feel very comfortable. She could see I was terrified even just being on there, and then the anxiety of talking about this stuff. And she was I got a feeling like she was like into it, like, on genuinely interested in a genuine kind of way, and not at all using me for ratings or snickering. I mean, probably was using me for ratings, but you know what I'm saying? Just, I was really impressed. And this was way back in the late 80s. And that to me was shocking because I totally expected to go in there and just be completely laughed out the door,
Yeah, just used purely for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, but she was so like cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously she's big into spirituality, metaphysics.
Now I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, and I wonder if that's something that she would revisit in these later years, because it's just odd to me that you don't see the abduction experience covered in the way that it was during that period. Lisa, during that period of time, you must have been seeing what's going on television, right? Yeah. Did it trigger anything within you, or how did you react to it?
You mean recently?
No, then. Yep.
What year was that?
Well, and any of that, the news coverage, whether it would be...
You know what? I actually don't remember because I actually read Intruders, and that scared me so much I could only read half of it. And I actually threw it across the room because this is so scary. This is just, beyond my, fear level. Yeah. But also, that was probably the time that I worked, 2 to 11 or something like that. And so I probably didn't watch a lot of news at that time. So... but I was probably scared, as I think a lot of people are, just the thought of not having control of your environment. But I don't know.
Right, control. Do you guys feel like you have control of yourselves now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as much as I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
And that's why you have others, right? Like Debbie and Terry, and yeah. Does it help you, Lisa, to talk about it more consistently?
Yes, it does, because I think, especially my husband doesn't really believe it. And so anything I see in something that happens, he'll have some, logical explanation for it. I just see it differently. And I think that if I talk to more of my people more often, then we would all be able to come to a consensus, and have some similarities, and then I could be more myself, because I think that's one of the things it robs us of, is not being ourselves around other people. Right.
So Lisa, if people are coming away from this experience and saying that over time it's positive to a degree, what's the positive for you at this point, if there is?
I think that I'm finding out just how strong I really am. I mean, I knew that before,
right there.
But I really know it now, because I'm just a lot. I used to be more of a people pleaser, and now I'm not. So I'm much better with my boundaries, but my strength is astronomical.
Yeah. So I'm wearing this T-shirt of my favorite movie of all time, E.T. So now here's the question. I love E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I think it's a beautiful film. It is hands down my favorite film. And for me, when I watch these kinds of movies, I can interpret that fictional alien experience however way I wish to. And if it's a warm and fuzzy one, that works for me, right? Because I didn't have that experience.
Right.
Let's start with Debbie. When you're watching these kinds of movies, whether it's Independence Day, War of the Worlds, or E.T. the Extraterrestrial, how do you interpret the media, the artistry?
Well, Hollywood has a way of twisting things a little bit in order to, be more sensational and sell more movie tickets and whatnot. Overall, I'm happy to see the information out there. People are watching it, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I thought it was brilliant. I remember going to the movie theater when my parents, on Christmas Eve of '77, I think is when it came out, and that we used to go to the movies. I kept poking my dad in the arm going, look at that. Look, yes, look. My dad's like, shut up, I'm watching a movie. I got so excited about certain parts of that movie that rang true to me. And then, like E.T., they portrayed the alien as friendly and loving and stuff. And part of me thought, yeah, maybe some of them. I mean, and I didn't really have whatever was messing with me was I never felt it was malevolent. I always felt that any damage was like inadvertent and not intentional. But you know, it also it kind of concerns me that they make them all either look like that or Independence Day, where they're all evil and they're going to eat us and everything like that too. Because I feel like, look, they've been around for a long time, and if they were going to be like that, they'd have done it a long time ago. I feel. Yeah. I also feel like there's you know, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of things going on with all different kinds of agendas. Probably as many of them as there are of us with our human agendas all going on, you know? Mm-hmm. So I don't want people to be, I don't want Hollywood to scare people with this, you know? But then I also don't want them to think that they're all like little teddy bears that you can go up and pet either. So I don't know. I like to watch them all and just take it all in.
So Terry, when you see movies where the aliens are cute and lovable, does it piss you off, or are you?
Oh
okay
yeah,
with
pretty
that?
much. yeah. And you know what? I don't watch a lot of movies. I really don't. I haven't had cable TV in 15 years, so I find my diversion on other ways. And but I agree with Deb. It is a good thing that they have. That the subject is getting exposure.
Yeah, people need to get used to seeing them, and they need to get used to the idea that we're not alone. And the best way to do that is through this.
It makes me wonder if, you know, Steven Spielberg maybe and some of the other people in Hollywood are working in collusion together to maybe is that an agenda to get us acclimated?
Yeah. I always used to say I thought Steven Spielberg was an abductee.
Well, you know, he was definitely an enthusiast. Right, especially when he was younger. There's a Blu-ray DVD of Close Encounters that I have, and I rewatched it, and I watched a little bit of the behind the scenes. And this is around 2007-8 when he did the behind the scenes interview, and he said that he had changed his mind. That at that point in his life, he didn't really believe, because it just like his comment in his film, which is kind of ironic, is he said that we have so many more cameras pointed at the sky, you know, after 30 years and still nothing. So, and I've heard that argument be used before. I'm sure you have too. Since you've had the close encounters, what is your response to that? Like, what have you seen that could explain why that is? Why we haven't caught them on camera?
I have an example.
Sure.
I took my wife to the optometrist, and we were coming out, and she didn't have her eyes weren't dilated or anything. There was nothing wrong with her vision. And we were going to walk. We were in a back parking lot, and we were walking toward our car. And I saw this woman like this with her head looking up, and I just instinctively looked up, and there was a cigar-shaped silver disc.
All right, Terry, let's hold it right there. We're going to continue this story on the other side of the break. We just bumped up to it. So we'll continue on KGRADB.com live. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. I will see you all on the inverted upside down. Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your most grateful host, live on KGRADB.com. Please check us out on the YouTube channel, streaming every week, and you can join the chat. Hello, everyone to chat. Thank you so much for joining. I will do my best to catch up on your comments, but there are so many. So we have a lot of questions, and that means we can either get to those comments as a chat question, or if you would like, you can call in the last 30 minutes. That's 1-855-472-5483 for the listener open lines. The Paranormal Radio app line is 85KGRA. Live. All right, Terry, sorry I had to cut you off there. Far too many times I've broken the rule of not going to break on time. So thank you. Please continue with your story.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, my wife and I were walking to our car, and this woman is in the parking lot looking up at something, and I look up, and sure enough, there's a cigar-shaped aluminum, tinfoil-like thing in the sky. And I'm like, Sheila, look, can you see that? And she's like, no. I'm like, it's right there. Can't you see that? I don't see anything. And this woman with her head looking at the same thing. I'm like, Madam, are you seeing this too? And she turns around and her eyes are like this big, and she just goes like, So I don't know. I some people see this stuff and some people don't.
Yes, Mom and I had an experience together in '84, and we had this crazy thing fly over the house. And Bud caught us at the time. MUFON didn't want to have anything to do with us because they didn't touch abduction anything. And so Bud connected us with Dr. Hynek in Chicago, which was just a few hours north of us. And he had us draw these pictures and send them up to him. And we talked to him on the phone several times. And my mother told me she was the last one to talk to him. And she said that in their conversation that he had told her that in his research, he was beginning to feel as if not everyone could see these things. And because this thing that was over our house was huge. And this was down in Indianapolis, which is a major city with millions of people. And we were only 10 minutes from downtown Indy. Mm-hmm. So there's no way that a ton of people didn't see this humongous thing. And so we're sure it's going to be on TV. It's going to be on the radio, but, nothing, zero, nothing. So it makes me think, besides what Dr. Hynek said, I feel like that something happens to us when we have these contacts or this experience that flips a switch. And we're more able to see things that maybe other people don't see. Like we get an extra circuit grown or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Speaks to their level of influence over us.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very true, Terry. I agree too, because I've started seeing a lot more things that my husband can't see. I also smell things. I'll smell cigarette smoke. I don't smoke, neither does my husband. I'll smell coffee.
I smell that too.
And neither of us drink coffee. Wow. I'll smell coffee. I'll smell wood smoke, mm-hmm. And he can't smell anything. So
I do that too. I'll come out of the house. I'll be like, Dave, who's smoking? He's like, nobody. He doesn't smell it either, but I do.
Yeah, I do too. So it's just interesting that a lot of these things, I am starting to see more things also as well. And I know he can't see them because he just thinks that, I'm crazy sometimes, but I'm not. And you're my people. I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy.
You're not crazy.
Well, have you all met anyone who really is struggling right now with this, that you've had to really have a one-on-one chat with, and to help guide them through? Maybe people you've met during speaking engagements or interviews and that sort of thing?
I have a guy from Naval Intelligence that contacted me.
Wow.
That unfortunately I can't interview, and he can't even tell me about what happened to him. But what happened to him was so dramatic that he quit the United States Navy 4 years short of retirement.
Wow.
And he is not in a good place, but he's working on it every day. So
what do they look like? Because we mentioned E.T. and all these different movies. Terry, what do you recall?
I recall three beings total. I recall a tall, pinkish white guy who kind of looked like a gray. He had like a mongoloid human type skull, and features were, not much of a nose, just a bump, slit for a mouth, no ears to speak of, and eyes that were big, black, and like wrap around Ray-Bans. They weren't exaggerated, huge.
Yeah.
And I saw the little gray guys that I thought were not really sentient, in the way that you and I are. I think they're manufactured like worker bees or something. I don't think that they're.
So
and then I saw.
Were they biological, or what do you mean manufactured?
I don't think, like I said, I don't think they're living and self-aware. I think that they come off, at least the ones I contacted. Now, I've said this, and I've had people, oh, no, you're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong. The grays I saw were this, or the grays I saw were that. Mm-hmm. But, I can only tell you what I saw and what my experience was. And I thought these things were manufactured off of a line with, quantum computing and little biomaterial and artificial intelligence and, boom, push them off an assembly line. That was my impression.
And what color? How do you describe their exterior?
Medium gray.
Medium gray.
And I can't tell if it's a garment or if that's just their natural color. But the ones that I saw all looked identical, and that was my impression.
Debbie, what about yourself?
Most of the time, what I've experienced has been with the gray, kid-sized, big heads, pinch of a nose, slit of a mouth, big eyes, big black eyes that are almost liquidy and shimmery in a way that is hypnotizing when you look at them. And they all look the same to me, but only one of them did I get a feel of, like a communication with of some kind. All the other ones that I've seen around me were never talked to me or communicated with me at all. And I've had strange experiences with tall, blonde humans, gorgeous, beautiful human beings, and tall, dark-haired, thin, dark-eyed people. The two that I saw looked like identical twins, and they were with a blonde person. And it was a really weird experience. And then there was that one time when I thought I was, in a hospital with humans, and this big old doctor with this southern drawl said he was going to take a bug out of my ear and I'd feel a lot better. Then laughed at me and said, I don't know why I'm even bothering to tell you this, because you're not going to remember it. I did. So, but mostly it's been the grays, and their skin, their skin is gray. I remember them wearing like black skin tight coverings of some kind that covered their feet and all the way up. And the only thing that was exposed was their hands and their face, their head.
Right. Lisa, do we have you?
I don't know. Do you?
Yes, we do. All right, great. Thank you so much for that. So what about you? What have you seen as far as extraterrestrials?
I have seen mostly praying mantis, and also still a lot of spiders, and people, a lot of people.
A lot of people. What do the people look like?
They are usually wearing scrubs of some type, and they are actually giving me a surgery. So they're all trying to give me a surgery of some type. And around the surgery is like a stork-like being or a beetle. And so they're all working together towards either torturing me or giving me a surgery that I don't want and I didn't agree to.
Yeah, I always found the beetle description so interesting because it is unique. Now, anyone who follows this, there are so many different species out there that are reported. So, Terry and Debbie, most consistently, it would be that gray description, right? That's what you would see more consistently. Lisa, which is the most consistent that you would see in your experiences?
It's praying mantis and spiders, actually. And the spiders, they seem to be, trying to blend in and trying to be, show me that they're actually a person, a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And they all use telepathy. And sometimes they'll move their mouth, like, but they're actually not talking through their mouth. It's all telepathy.
Okay.
Here's an interesting little tidbit. My older sister had an experience in '65 where she was actually her in her car were lifted into a craft, and she had her experiences have been with the praying mantis type, but mine haven't. I've never encountered that, and she's never encountered a gray, and yet we're sisters that were raised in the same house. And that's kind of weird, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen a gray probably once, but I think they were trying to show me my hybrid children, and they were trying to say, here's your hybrid child. Do you want to hold it? And I refused to be manipulated in that way because I felt like they were trying to use my emotions.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to allow you to use my emotions against me. And so, so part of me knew that what they were after, that they wanted to use me like emotional blackmail. Like, here's your child. Do you feel anything for it? If you do, guess what? We can use that against you for other things.
Yeah.
So
I think this goes to a good point that the bunkers often make, and that's, we're always seeing these grays, ever since Betty and Barney Hill, everybody sees grays. Isn't that coincidental? Right? It's just culture feeding into itself, but then that's not true. That's not the reality. The reality is people like yourself have seen more than one species, or predominantly something completely other than the gray. So, and I think that makes more sense, because if we're going with the assumption that there are civilizations out there and different extraterrestrial beings, that there would be a multitude of various types. Now, science here on Earth, there are scientists who would make the argument that being a bipedal creature is actually beneficial towards intelligent design, or intelligence. When you see the spider, when you see the bug, are they bipedal? Are they upright? How do you describe the way they move and look?
for me, they were, upright, and it was like they were trying to blend in with all the humans. But I did have an encounter where there was a spider inside of what I call a people suit. So they were actually wearing like a giant mask that all went all the way down to the floor, and they looked like a person, but they unzipped it, and I could see that they were actually a big spider. So, I don't know if they do that to make us feel better. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure, but it seems that it's in their best interest to be upright and acting like a human.
Right. And our understanding of nanotechnology in its infancy, I think it's easy for us to imagine and extrapolate, years ahead, where we might have that same ability, where we can create these sort of biomechanical suits that we could put on us, whether for protection to go deep sea diving or against radiation, or in this case, I guess to disguise. Now, some people, and Debbie and Terry, tell me if you've had this experience. Some experiencers share that there is that transference of imagery, an overlaying, so that you, the experiencer, are seeing something different other than the abductor. Have you had that experience?
Yes,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Deb, then I'll follow.
Well, it was actually an experience that I had, right? It was like the week after I had my hysterectomy, so it was in like 92, and it was me, my late husband, and our house guest who was living with us at the time. And we were we lived out in the country, and there was the cows were going crazy out in the field, and we went out there. There was a red light. My late husband started to record on his audio, or on his camcorder, this light and this weird sound coming from the barn, the cows and all that. And Jean and I and her daughter were standing out at the end of the driveway looking down the road, and there was something coming towards us, walking on the edge of the road. And I first thought it was a deer, and that I was like looking dead right onto it, so it was like tall and skinny and had the big head. And I said, "Oh, look at that deer." And Jean said, "That's not walking right." But I saw a deer. And then Jean made a comment, and then you hear her daughter scream on the tape. And then the next thing you know, 18 minutes are like gone off this videotape. And then it's the next thing it jumps to my husband talking to a guy on the phone who is a ham radio operator like him. And they're trying to triangulate with each other to see if they can figure out where this red light is actually at. And it's all on the audio tape. So I thought I saw a deer, but it apparently was not a deer. So.
And Terry, what about yourself? Do you have an example?
Sure. Yeah. From my book, when I was little, I used to see 4 monkeys in my room. I mean, like little circus monkeys, like 2 feet tall, and they would take me, and that's when I'd go to this white room, domed room with other kids in their night clothes, not kids from the neighborhood, not kids that I was in daycare with. But they all, the first time they came, I thought they were even kind of comical. And I've got letters from people saying, well, I had my own cousin down in Arkansas, in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Well, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. He was the same age as I was. He was 8 years old. We were both 8. He was having a problem with little clowns in his room. And I've got emails from people saying that as a kid, they saw owls, they saw orbs, they saw Disney characters talking to them. I just think these things can appear in a way that a child will find most benign.
And that would certainly not be a spider.
No, that would not be a spider.
I don't like spiders.
Hence the suit. So if you're just joining us tonight, we're speaking with experiencers Debbie Jordan-Kauble, Lisa O'Hara, and Terry Lovelace. They've all been on Paranormal Now before, and it has already been really insightful for me to hear you discuss your different experiences. In about 13 minutes, we'll open up the phone lines for listeners to call in. Before we do that, we have a few images from Lisa that I uploaded here that I'm going to share with you. And Lisa, if you could explain to the listeners and viewers what these images are.
That one is actually just my leg with with marks that I wake up with on my body the next day after an abduction. And
there's 4 points, which is it's very symmetrical.
Yes, I still have not figured out. I mean, I don't have all the answers either, but I still have not figured out how they make these. They kind of looks like syringe marks to me.
Yeah.
But they're very deliberate. When you look at them, you can tell they were deliberately put there. Yeah, that one is either SP or JP. Do you see how that?
Yeah.
I see. That's interesting. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, how do you know it's not just a regular bruise? Go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I went to bed. I didn't have that. The next day I have it. Well, how would I get that in the middle of the night? I mean, I am a bit of a klutz, but usually the bruises, are just solid. They're just a solid green or black, but they don't have these specific little red dots in the middle.
Right. Where those red dots are there any kind of puncture wounds, or is it, because it almost looks like someone took like a prong, right? And pressed really hard. Yeah.
In that case, I mean, some of the marks I've had on my body are actually like, they look like cattle prod marks or stun gun marks. So that's what I've, determined the other ones are. These, I don't know, they're getting a lot stranger and a lot less frequent than before, but still the extra strange ones.
Yeah. What kind of technology have you all observed? Let's start with Terry. Is there anything in particular, any tools, like a stun gun or something like this, that you've noticed that really stood out in your experience?
Only one example I can give of that, and that is 1977 when I was abducted. The other kind of creature that I saw was a mantis, and they took me into a room with a table, and I had my clothes, all my boots in my hand. They took them from me and put me on this table somehow. And the table was warm. I was surprised at that. And the entity, I call him Dr. Bug. And I picture this thing in my mind's eye wearing a white lab coat. And I have no doubt that this thing was not wearing a white lab coat, that was just an image projected for my comfort. And really, it had a medical, clinical vibe to it. I didn't feel like I was in a torture chamber. But this thing was manipulating these stainless steel tools that looked like surgical tools of some kind. And they were doing something to my lower back that hurt a lot. And so I saw that. I saw this guy manipulating these tools, and that's what I remember. That's the only thing that I can recall.
What about yourself, Debbie?
When I was a little kid and I got lost in Detroit, we can even go back to this screen memory thing. When I was in this strange house, I encountered a little boy about my height, and he looked like a normal little boy, but he had his eyes were large and brown, real dark eyes, and he wanted me to play with him. So he took me into a room of this house, and when we were in this room, it definitely didn't, in thinking about it as an adult, it was not like a room of a house. It was like, didn't have any corners. It was all just kind of illuminated softly. There was no lights in it, but it was lit. And he wanted me to play with some toys that he had. And I remember sitting in the floor went down. There was like a square hole in the floor, and I sat on the edge of it. I remember seeing a table that I saw a red light on the wall as it flashed, and the table like slid out from the wall, like a table big enough for a person to lay on. But I remember sitting on the floor, and then he set something on my lap, which was about the size of a shoebox that had a hole in it and had like string-like things across it, which to me, I thought I was supposed to pluck it, or play it like an instrument. And at some point during this playtime with these toys, something poked me in the leg, and it hurt really bad. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I remember thinking it hurt, and I got mad at him because I thought he did it to me, and I just didn't see him do it. And it was right about that moment when I was suddenly not in the playroom anymore. I was standing in front of the open door. The little boy was there, and here come his mother out of the room, out of the back area room. And she says, something to the effect of, what is she doing here? She's not supposed to be here. She needs to leave right now. And then bam, I get literally shoved out the door, but nobody actually touches me. So I don't know what all that stuff was I saw in there that I was told were toys. And then obviously he wasn't a little boy, but he looked like a little boy to me. So, and his mom looked like a human too, but she looked like a big mean lady who was really angry.
So didn't want to mess with mama.
No.
Lisa, stun gun. What does that look like? Do you recall?
No, I don't. I just end up with the bruise afterwards. And at first I thought they looked like spider bites, actually, because, spider bites are in tubes, and I just finally realized that it's one of the ways that they get me to leave my house, is with a stun gun or some type of machine or something that would cause me to go to sleep. There were a couple of other times that I actually saw them use something that looked kind of like a women's shaver. And it was pointed at my head, and there were a little arc came in, and then I fell asleep. So a lot of times it seems like they just are able to knock you out instantly. And I've been taken, mid-thought. So there's no real way, first of all, to know that they're in the room unless they make it known by their negativity. Or, you're just knocked out immediately, and then you're gone. So...
Do you think they know you all are talking to each other?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
No question.
I mean, so how do you, what do you make of that? If they're doing these things, there's a certain level of clandestine activity and cover up, and yet here you all are sharing experiences.
In a way, I feel like the more exposure I have, the more visible I am, the safer I feel. I
Yeah,
want myself out there.
yeah. And when I went to New York the first time, one of the things that I felt as I came home was I was afraid to come home because I was afraid they'd get mad because I talked to him. And then I was going back to Indiana. I felt safer in the big city, which, probably wasn't true, but I felt safer in New York than I did out in the middle of cornfield in Indiana, But yeah, I think they, I don't know, maybe out there somebody's like thinking this is interesting, just watching how we're interacting and stuff. I don't know.
Could it be part of their study?
Mm,
I think so.
could be.
I think that in a way they don't want us to talk about it because then that outs them. And when we do talk about it, they have to pull back on some of their techniques because now we're speaking out about it. And actually, after many years of silence, even after I wrote my book, I thought to myself, this is my opportunity to actually tell people what it's really like to be an abductee. And, you have to out yourself first by telling everyone what's really going on. And then there's another layer where people don't really talk about, which is the incessant harassment that goes on afterwards. And for me, I'm in that right now. And I recently realized that if I don't start talking about that, it'll never stop. So each time I say something that is what they're doing to me specifically, it stops. So that's why I think it's really, really important, not only just for our sanity, but also to stop some of the very negative harassment we're going through.
A negative harassment from the extraterrestrials?
Yes.
Do you think that they're testing biology or psychology?
I don't know. What would you say, Terry?
I mean, I'd say both. I think they follow us. I think they observe us. I had this thing in my leg. I think they track me everywhere I go.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a long history of weird mechanical problems, or I should say weird electrical problems. Computers break. Well, So yeah, I don't know. I think they're never too far away.
Yeah, I think it's both.
Have you been genetically altered, do you think, in some way? Or do you think that they just use your genetics for some other purpose?
I always got the message, the answer is in our blood. I don't know if it's me as an individual or if it's us as a human species.
Sure.
But the answer is in the blood.
Okay. The answer is in the blood. And for everybody listening, we're speaking with Debbie Jordan-Kauble, Lisa O'Hara, Terry Lovelace, all experiencers. If you have questions for them, we're going to open up the Paranormal Radio app lines now. So to call in, that number is 1-855-472-5483 or 85-KGRA live. Our producer Bill Skywatcher is on standby. He'll give you the cue and we'll pull you on the air. If you have a question to ask each other, what would it be? So Lisa, let's start with you. If you can ask Terry or Debbie a question about their experience, what is that question?
I would say, I'm so glad to have met you because I feel so less alone. And how do you cope with your situations?
Well, I as I said earlier, I think I cope by doing what I'm doing, and that is talking about it, writing about it, talking to other people, that email me and establishing a dialogue. And that's what's helped me.
Yeah. And so, Debbie, if you could ask the other two something about their experiences, what would it be?
Gosh, I don't know. There's so many questions I would have. I don't know. Maybe do you feel like there was anything positive in the experiences that you had at all, or do you think it was all a negative thing?
It wasn't all negative for me. It was scary. You know, the things that took me in 1977, I was really kind of upset with them for a long time, for a couple of decades, but you know, I put that aside. You know, I talked about Dr. Bug, the 7-foot-tall insectoid-like thing. You know, I just have this feeling, if I could sit down with him and have a cup of coffee or something, and I think he'd say, "Hey, just doing my job, man. You know, no hard feelings." So that's kind of where I'm at.
So that's a good question, Debbie, because there's two versions of that question, and that is there a positive experience post experience? Is there something positive you got out of it, and then is there something positive in the experience itself? It sounds like, Terry, to me, that you, in a sense, you kind of understood this doctor, right? This being. Was there any kind of connection there, and have any of you felt an actual like emotional connection, like two humans would feel between each other with any of these beings?
Well, with Dr. Bug, I was screaming or trying to scream. I was frozen. I couldn't move, but I could scream, and I couldn't hear myself. And I kept filling my lungs with air and screaming while I'm on this table, because whatever he was doing to my lower back hurt. And I'm thinking, my God, can't you guys anesthetize me or something?
Yeah.
And I will never forget these words. He looked at me and he said, "Why are you screaming? Stop screaming. We don't hurt you, and you know we take you back. Now stop screaming." And he touched me on my forehead with his big long green finger, and I was out unconscious. And the next thing I knew, I was semi-conscious next to my car.
That sounds very parental.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take our first call. Ron from Minnesota, you're on the line. Ron from Minnesota, are you there? All right, looks like we're going to have to try that again.
Ron from ERT Radio.
And that is Ron from ERT Radio. You know all too well. Yeah. So Deb, have you had that kind of connection in any way?
It always seemed like I said, all the little gray guys all looked alike, except one stood out to me as different and felt familiar to me. And I don't know why. I felt like I'd had interaction with this one particular one before. I always called him him. I had no reason to think it was a male or a female, but I always called him him. And at one point when I saw that little girl during one of my, I call it the dream, where I saw this child and I got angry and, you know, wanted to take her home with me. He looked at me and kind of telepathically, I guess, was like he didn't understand why I was upset, because this was a good thing. And you know, it's like he was the one that I had contact with back in 78 when I was first married. So, I mean, it's the same one. So I feel like I grew up with him, I guess. I don't know.
All right, we're going to try this again. Ron from Minnesota, you're on the line.
Hi, Alan. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Ron, how are you?
All right. Hi, Debbie, Lisa, and Terry.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. I have a good question for all of you. When you are approached by an experiencer, what is your primary question that you open the conversation with?
For me, it's always, how are you doing?
Yeah, I always start with, like, when I ran into Calvin Parker, I shook his hand, and we immediately kind of knew we were on the same wavelength. And I said, "So you've had experiences too?" That's kind of the line that I use. You've had experiences too, and I think that opens the door for the conversation.
I have a group, and I ask people to introduce themselves on Facebook. And, I found that people don't want to all tell their paranormal experiences, but they'll introduce themselves. So that's what I've started doing.
Yeah. Debbie?
Thanks. Well, thank you very much, Alan. Another great show.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Appreciate the call as always. And so, yeah, obviously, Terry, you're familiar with Ron from Earth Radio. He's a great guy. He's a regular on KGRA and Paranormal Now. And thank you, Ron, and thank you to you who are listening and supporting this program every week. We really appreciate it. So do you think, okay, so Lisa, you had this kind of sense that like you had a purpose of some sort, right? Like you're being taught or trained something.
Yeah.
What is that?
I'm not really sure, actually. But I wanted to say that the one positive thing that I can think of was I'm not afraid of spiders, so maybe they knew I wasn't. And so the spider, to me, was not fearful. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, they at first told me that I was a leader, and they were training me to be a warrior. So I, thought, well, okay. So that's why I kind of went along with some of these things, because I thought, well, maybe I need that, in my life. So
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it's all about.
Oh, a warrior for your own spirit, or a warrior for some particular cause?
It was unclear. I think I took it as a warrior for to have skills or knowledge, or maybe to test my strength. I don't know, for the future. I'm not sure. They're not very descriptive in their messages. They just throw that out there, and you try to figure out what it means.
Yeah, there seems to be quite a bit of ambivalence left on the table.
Yes. And a lot of, it's sort of precision, right? So you could say, will you do this, or can you do this? Those are actually two different things. So I've learned not to say, can you, but instead say, will you? Because will you is the actual request, and can you is, asking about their skill level,
Yeah. Have any of you had those visions, or that sense that you have to get a message across to humanity? Because for so long we did hear that message from experiencers that we have to protect our planet. You're not doing a good enough job. Get it together. Have you had that experience? Because I've yet to hear that tonight.
No.
I can't say that I have. No. I mean, I feel that there has to be a purpose to this. I mean, there has to be a purpose, but they're not taking questions. So
Yeah, and Lisa, that's actually an interesting point that you made, and maybe there's some truth to that. That since you're not afraid of spiders, right? Maybe because there's this plethora of species, if we assume that out there, that particular species would abduct someone or make contact with someone who they know won't be frightened by them, right? They won't have to deal with the overlaying and what have you.
Right. I mean, it doesn't, I don't know if they wanted to show me their technology by, unzipping their people suit and showing that they were actually a spider, or what. But, like I said, I'm not afraid of spiders at all. Actually, I used to try to feed all the spiders around my house when I was younger, and by putting ants in the middle of their webs and stuff like that. So I'm actually a huge fan of spiders and tarantulas and stuff. So I don't know.
I mean, by far, spiders really are our friends for the most part, right?
They are. They absolutely are. It's
yeah.
like the bees.
Sure, I've been stung by bees, but I wouldn't get rid of them for the world.
Right.
The world would be gone without them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm writing a book on that, actually. Go Tell the Bees.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Very cool, Terry.
Cool.
And is it a more environmentally based?
It is. It is. And it involves a Celtic ritual that's practiced in Appalachia and Arkansas. And I saw it as a kid, where if a beekeeper dies, the wife will go out and drape some black cloth over the hives. And my grandmother took a glass of sweet wine and set it down on one of the hives and said, Cecil has died, and his funeral will be this afternoon at 4:00. And, I don't know. If anybody's interested, look up Mr. I think his name's Robert, but the last name is Zepka, Zepka. He had a funeral in 1956, and his entire colony of hives came to his funeral, and draped themselves all over the flowers and the headstone and stayed there. Didn't molest anyone, didn't make any noise until the graveside service was over. And then they all lifted up and flew back to their hives. And this was reported in a bunch of newspapers.
Wow.
John Zepka, and the year was 1956.
It's really fascinating. My wife, her grandfather was just this beautiful spirit of a man, and he was very in tune with nature. And it was the only time I've ever seen beehives in person, and the bees knew him. I mean, they knew him. He used the smoking for basically for me and for us, but not for him. He could just walk up to that hive. He would talk to them, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And it seems to me that if this planet Earth is a symbiosis, that it's all about balance and this interplay between different levels of consciousness and beings, then wouldn't that then be the case in the galaxy or greater universe? What do you think about that? Does your experience undercut that theory, or does it support that theory?
Well, my theory supports that. I think there's a collective, non-local kind of intelligence that's in the mass of the hives. But, I don't know if everyone's aware, but, the bees are dying. And it has to do with big agriculture and chemicals. And, the bees are the canary of the coal mine for the world. So if the bees are in trouble, we're in trouble.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to me, though, that we've really made any progress with these alien encounters. So I guess my concern is there progress being made? And if so, is there any way for us to measure that?
No.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, we'll leave that answer, that question out there. And maybe someone in the chat has some thoughts on it as well. It just seems to me that there is that spiritual component to all of this. And Debbie, back to your comment earlier about that sort of psychic experience. Are these blood, physical beings, or are they ultra-dimensionals, or both?
Well, when I think back to the craft in my mom's backyard, and I think back to the size of it and the fact there were 6 little people that went into it, thinking about it now, there's no way in the world that 6 little people could fly anywhere they'd be crammed in that little thing. It wasn't much bigger than the pump house or the swimming pool. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that thing was, but based on things I've experienced over the years and things I've seen and things I've heard from other people, I really am beginning to feel that I'll at least most of what I've had contact with hasn't particularly come from out there in outer space, but maybe from some other dimension or some other universe that's connected to us somehow. I did a drawing one time called Dick Casey's Bubbles, and I did it because I saw a big glob of soap bubbles hanging off my son's wand, and I had this Roy moment from Close Encounters, and the mashed potato thing, and I recognized it, and eventually I remembered that this look of soap bubbles connected was what universes look like out here. And that, I just, and that's where the paranormal came in. Cause I've recorded EVPs that were so clear, you'd think the person was sitting in the room with me. Not the stuff you see on TV, but actually really voices. And one of the voices said to me, one of the voices on the tape said, "Are the spirits listening?" And another voice said, "Can I listen too?" And I looked at my nephew when we heard that, and I had this epiphany like, oh my God, we're the spirits somewhere else, and they're listening for us. They can hear little snippets and bits and pieces of us in those points where we meet fleetingly for a moment,
Fleetingly.
you know? And so I feel like what I've had most of my experience has been something from some other dimension or universe that's managed a way to come here for a minute or two.
So this fleeting intersection, I guess it doesn't undo the structure of reality. That's because that's something that we kind of get out of science fiction or the Ghostbusters, the crossing of the streams, right? You'd kind of think that an intersection would sort of break down the apparent necessary walls that divide one dimension from another.
And the soap bubble, it's like soap bubbles that, you know, when they touch and they cling together for a minute, it's not forever.
Yeah.
It's temporary. And that eventually that connection breaks and rolls on, and then it's in a different place. That's the way I feel like these universes connect, is fleeting, these little moments when crossing through is possible, you know. Or I could just be crazy, and that's all right too, I guess.
Well, I was gonna
pills for that.
Yeah.
I'll gladly take them.
Yeah, we can go back to that discussion.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, and you kind of alluded to that. Are there things that you see? May it be a crop circle, and this is for all of you, or any symbols or anything like that are a trigger for you?
Yes. For me.
A yes for what? The crop circle?
Now, you know, most crop circles you see today, I feel like I get a vibe from them that they're made by people, and they're beautiful and they do a great job, and it's probably really difficult. But early on, there were a few different designs. I just had this conversation with Linda Howe today. Back in the early time, like in the first couple of years, I would have these drawings that would come out of my head, and I would have to put them down before they'd go away. They wouldn't leave me alone. And then once I drew them, they'd go away. Some of the drawings that I did back in the early 80s showed up as crop circles in the 90s. And I was fortunate and blessed enough to be able to talk to Colin Andrews about it many times. And I'm not the only one. By far, there were many people that did what I did, and their designs were similar, and some were exact. I don't know what it means, but I can tell you the first time I ever saw a crop circle on television, the particular design, Wiltshire, I think. I can't remember. I could tell you the crop circle, but I can't remember what it was called.
Okay.
I literally fell off the couch. I had such a strong physical response to it. Yeah. And it was elation and excitement, and the hair on my arms stood up, and the hair on my back of my neck stood up. And it was like I had a literal physiological response to just viewing this symbol.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I haven't had that response to a crop circle in years. Sure. So I think a lot of them are probably man-made, and they're pretty. I'd be mad as hell if I was a farmer, but you know.
Although some farmers try to turn it around if they can to make it like a tourist site, right? And to make a little bit.
Yeah, they got to make the money up some way.
Exactly. Yeah, for loss of crops. All right, so we only have a few minutes left. I'm going to get this last call in. Maria, you are on the line on Paranormal Now. Welcome.
Thank you. How are you tonight?
Hey, Maria, good.
Good. My question is kind of off the wall, and it has to do with blood types. Why do you think that researchers try to stretch the O negative, RH negative factor into being some type of alien bloodline?
I don't know. I'm A positive. So
I'm O negative. But the guy that I got abducted with was RH positive. I knew because it was on our name, on our dog tags.
I'm A positive also, so.
Yeah, I've heard this too, Maria, right? There's this theory that there's a connection there. Could it be that connection is for a particular purpose, maybe, and that doesn't include all experiencers?
That too, and it's such a rare blood type where you've got the O negative and the RH negative. I think maybe somebody was trying to stretch it out to make it look good.
Right. Yeah, and what's the connection to the rhesus monkey? Do you remember, Maria?
I do not. I've heard the story, and it
Yeah.
just doesn't stick with me.
Yeah, but there is an evolutionary like spin-off that occurs, and it looks like the evidence would suggest. I know Nick Redfern has written a book on this, that there was a genetic splicing or interjection. So Maria, thank you so much for calling in. We're at the end of the show here. This has been a wonderful night, and I can't thank you all again for joining me. So for those who are not familiar, Lisa, where can people find you?
You can find me at my website at lisaoharaonline.com, also at Amazon, Facebook, Abducted and Furious, and my email is abductedandfurious@yahoo.com.
All right, and Debbie?
You can find me at my website. It's debshome.com, DEBSHOME. And the links to purchase my book will be available on my website, and also my publisher, August Night Press. And you can find me on Facebook.
All right, cool. And Terry, how about yourself?
Find me at terrylovelace.com. You can go and that's not well maintained, but I go there and look at some pictures. If you'd like to email, I'm happy to receive your email. Promise to return it. It's at terrylovelace@yahoo.com. My books are available on Amazon, Incident at Devil's Den and Devil's Den, The Reckoning, the new book. They're both on Amazon. I got an audiobook for Devil's Den, the first book. And within a few weeks, I should have another audiobook out for the second book.
Right. And Lisa, your book can be found on Amazon as well. And Debbie, your book is coming out soon. So everybody go out there. Can they pre-order it on Amazon?
I don't think so. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. If you could leave us with one thought, it doesn't have to be related to the topic at all. What would you leave us, Terry?
I'd say to stay positive.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Exactly. Exactly what my mind was thinking.
And Lisa saying, "Screw that."
No, I'm saying don't give up.
Don't give up. Okay, right. So stay positive. Don't give up. I'll second that. Do you, Debbie, believe that we have a soul and there's an afterlife?
Yes.
Lisa?
100%.
Yes, I do.
Terry?
Yes.
So your experiences have not deterred you away from that, or has it solidified that belief?
It's solidified for me.
For me
Yeah.
too.
Solidified? Wow. That's it. And that I would not expect that. Because especially that sense of anger that you would have. We all struggle with that, right? No matter what kind of experience, we ask, why is this happening, right? What's the point? Why are so many people suffering? So on a cosmic scale, do you think that these beings that are coming into your life and disturbing your life, do they have any higher order? Are they servants of something greater, or are they just a part of the evolution of the universe and they're just intelligent beings doing their thing like we do?
I think they're 500 runs up the evolutionary ladder from us. But in regard to the original question, I will say that I come to believe that there is a spiritual component to all of this. Mm-hmm. I don't understand it, but I believe it's there.
All right. Debbie, Lisa?
I agree with Terry.
Yeah?
I do too.
All right.
As much as I fought against it, I do believe there is a spiritual component, but it's tough when you're in it, to see it.
Yes, of course. All right. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your insights, your feedback, and sharing a little bit about yourselves tonight.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, this is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now, live on Sundays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on kgradb.com. If you want to find out more, just go to kgradb.com, or you can follow me on Paranormal Now Radio on Facebook, at Paranormal_Now on Twitter, and at Paranormal Now on Instagram. All right. And as always, thank you so much to my producer, Bill Skywatcher, and to KGRA Head of Operations, Eric Brager, and Race Hobbs. Stay tuned for Tracy Austin. And until next time, everyone, live in the mystery.